Here we go, guys. Main event, UFC 296, headlined by Leon Edwards putting his UFC welterweight title on the line against Colby Covington. So Leon Rocky Edwards, the 32-year-old out of West Midlands, England, his pro record stands at 21-3 with 1 no contest. 10 finishes on his record. 7 of those are knockouts. The man has not lost a fight since December of 2015, a unanimous decision loss against Kamaru Usman. This is pre-title Usman. And he's been on a tear ever since, man. The guy is just a winner. He has avenged that loss to Kamaru Usman with his most recent 2 victories. Head-kicking Usman to take the title. And then because Usman had a very extensive and impressive welterweight reign, he got that immediate rematch. But it did not matter. Rocky Edwards took it by a majority decision after 5 rounds back in March of this year. And now he welcomes for the first time Colby Covington as his opponent. Colby Chaos Covington, the 35-year-old out of Oregon, 17-3 as a pro with 8 finishes, 4 knockouts and 4 submissions, known for his motor, also known primarily as a grappler, and most recently he UD'd the great Jorge Masvidal in March of 2022. So almost, more than a year and a half ago, we have not seen Mr. Covington, and now he's back and right back in a title fight. I believe this is his 3rd challenge for the welterweight belt. The first 2 times he was turned away by Kamaru Usman, both times. And now he's challenging against Mr. Edwards. And things sure did turn personal at the press conference today with some real Colby Covington shenanigans. Maybe you guys want to touch on that. But Mark, start us off with the odds and your take and you pick.
So the odds are pretty tight. Leon Edwards is minus 165. Colby Covington is plus 135. 3 inches of height for Leon. He's the bigger man. 2 inches of reach as well. I have debated this one for a while. I have landed on Leon Edwards, but I'm going to tell you why I considered Colby here as much as I did. Leon Edwards can get frustrated in there when he can't find the space to throw that he wants to have. And also when the pace of the fight is not what he wants it to be. Like as an example, think about what was happening to him in that first Usman fight before he found the knockout. Now, granted, maybe some of that was cardio related, but a lot of it was about Usman being all over him. And Leon just couldn't find his space and felt like he couldn't work his game, and it was frustrating him. And I'm not saying Colby is better than Usman in terms of wrestling and et cetera, but I do think he is better at doing the things that Leon doesn't like. He's even more relentless than Usman. He's even more in your face and more needing to be attached to you than Usman. He'll repeatedly clinch. He'll repeatedly shoot even more than Usman does. And it's because he doesn't want to be out striking. Like Usman is fine to do that. He's more comfortable there. Colby is going to bring that pressure every single minute because he does not want to ever be at range. And Leon's going to have to deal with that. So that's why I really debated going with Colby here, because I could just see that pace and that pressure getting to Leon in this fight. But I trusted Leon twice against Kamaru because of the level of his overall talent. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Colby is less safe in this fight than I think he's used to being. Like, yes, of course, Kamaru can crack on the feet. But I think Colby felt he was okay there. Whereas the exchanges with Leon are going to be much more dangerous and make it harder for Colby to ever reset, simply because of how many weapons Leon uses on the feet. Or even like Jorge as an example. Of course, Jorge is as dangerous of a striker as Leon maybe, but Jorge couldn't stop the wrestling, so it didn't matter. Colby could just go back to that and keep pressing there. Leon can stop the wrestling and force resets. So I think Colby is going to have to wade through more danger than he has against any of his recent opponents. just because Leon's game is the most well-rounded, dangerous game that he's seen in a while. He's worked on his defensive wrestling. We saw that against Usman. We saw him stuff takedowns. We saw him get up off the mat. And on the feet, the man is a sniper and a killer. He can pick a part of the body and invest. He could rip Colby's legs. He could try to batter the body with kicks or knees in the clinch. He could find like sneaky slicing elbows when they're clinched against the cage. He can work his counters, with hooks. He can even see, so obviously he can set up head kicks, as we know. There's just a lot. 25 minutes in the cage with Leon having to worry about all that when you only have one avenue, which is I got to go forward. I got to keep this pace. I got to grind him out. It's a really big ask. So with all that said, I would not write off Colby being able to do it, but I'm going to go with Leon Edwards. I think it's a competitive fight where Colby's eating some big shots at times and is seemingly okay and still pushing forward or hunting takedowns or whatever it may be. But then at a certain point, he's eating another big shot on a reset, and then he eats another big shot on a reset, and then just becomes too much, and he wobbles, and Leon follows him and finishes him. So I'm going to say round 4 TKO for Leon Edwards.
Omar, who's coming away with the belt?
I'm not going to give you a rundown just because Mark kind of took a lot of the same points that I was going to make. But the biggest of them really is that Leon Edwards can stop the wrestling. And I think that's really what's going to make the big difference. The biggest thing I've always said about Colby Covington is that he's a very good mixed martial artist in the fact that he can do that. His game relies on every single aspect working for him. He's not necessarily, in my opinion anyway, not necessarily exceptional at like kind of the way we were just having this John Jones conversation. I don't think Colby Covington is an exceptional striker. I don't think he's necessarily an exceptional wrestler by itself. I don't think he's necessarily an exceptional grappler in general. I think if there's one thing to me it's extremely elite about Colby's game on an individual level, it's his cardio. His cardio is disgusting and definitely an asset in the cage. I think the thing that makes Colby dangerous is the fact that he can put all of those tools together effectively. So the cardio, the wrestling, the striking, all of that stuff he can link together without ever really taking a beat. And that makes him a real problem. I think Leon, though, will be able to control some of that pace. He'll be able to mess with his timing a little bit. And I think a lot of that is going to come from him being able to nullify a lot of the forward pressure and a lot of the takedowns that Colby is going to present. So I think when it comes to the striking, I think Leon is probably not going to have that much of an issue. I think he's probably going to find a lot of openings early that are probably going to force some takedowns to be thrown by Colby. And I think once Leon kind of establishes that he's not going anywhere and he's not going down to the ground, I think it's going to be a pretty short night for Colby, if we're being honest. So I'm going to go with KO round 4, Leon.
Same round.
There are interesting similarities and dissimilarities between Covington and Kamaru Usman. Mark, I agree completely that Colby is even more relentless with his clinching and grappling and mixing things up. But what is different and makes this very interesting to me is that Covington is not a big welterweight. He is a guy who I think would definitely benefit from a 165-pound division. And he's giving up, I think, a bit of size and, in that same vein, power against one of the most dangerous strikers on the roster. And even though Usman was bullying Edwards for 4.5 rounds in that fight, really not the first round, but really, 2, 3, and 4, and then heading into that 5th, and knowing and seeing that Edwards only needed a sliver of rhythm to do what he did to Usman. I think that he certainly can and probably will do that to Covington, especially since at the press conference, Covington said to him, "I'm going to take you to the 7th circle of hell. We'll say hi to your dad there."
Yeah.
So I think he's really, poking the bear here. And maybe maybe that's what he wants. Maybe he thinks that's what he wants. Maybe he thinks he's getting under his skin.
I think he thinks
and maybe
that's what he
is.
wants. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
But
I think it's more than poking the bear. I think he slapped the bear across the fucking face. I think it's
right.
I think he got the exact
And,
reaction he was trying to get, and now he feels like,
Yes.
all right,
Yeah.
good, I got him. He's you know, he's razzled. Whatever word I'm trying to say that I can't think of. Like
frazzled.
There you go. Thank you.
He's razzled and dazzled. So to me, after seeing that press conference and what he said to Edwards and Edwards' reaction, it's hard for me to pick against Edwards even more so. Because I'm like, oh man, this guy's gonna go in there and like, avenge his father's, this insult. So yeah, I'm going with Edwards. I'm gonna say knockout round 3.
Very nice.
But look, going back to what you were saying earlier, Mark, I think there is a version of this fight where Colby manages to execute his game plan in a similar fashion that Usman did and not fuck up and not get caught.
Yeah.
And get out of there after 5 rounds with a UD.
No, I agree. I think that's
very possible.
I think it's possible. And obviously
pretty possible.
The odds makers and the bettors think it's possible too, because the odds are pretty close.